Matthews, and this is the the premiere of Beatles-A-Rama TV. And my very first guest is indeed an honor to have him here. His name is Roag Best, and he's Pete's brother. And I'd like to bring Roag in right now. Roag, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm looking healthy. I've got a bit of a tan. I've come back from vacation. You know, it always makes you look a little bit better than you are the rest of the year.
Well, you look really healthy. That's the good thing, right?
Yeah. I look healthy. I feel exhausted, but I look healthy. So I'll go with the first one, looking healthy.
Well, we're going to be able to take questions from people, Roag, and what I'm going to do is put this up on the screen now. You got questions for Roag? Go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, and they'll ask you to access your Facebook name and picture. And if you accept, all future comments will show your name and picture, and we'll be able to look at those comments and, be able to answer questions if people may have them. But the first question I have for you, Roag, is who's the better drummer, you or Pete?
Oh, Pat. How can you do that? You're talking to a man who takes super pride in my drumming. You know, I was like a drum fanatic from about the age of 14. I used to work out on weights until I was absolutely exhausted, and then go and play the drums under the thing that I'll be that tired, and the sticks will feel that heavy, and everything will be so hard to do that when it comes to do it without weights, the speed will be there. And I was right. Who's the better out of me and Pete? I will answer that by saying totally different styles. Okay,
all right. Are you a little bit more heavy-handed because of the weights, or what? What do you think?
Yeah. Pete's got this wonderful technique, and where he skips between 3/4 and 4/4 time, and he does it so naturally, it just slides into each other. And it's only when you play with Pete, and I've seen other musicians, I'm talking about bass players, keyboard players, guitarists, and you see them give a little that's taking it somewhere else. And as I said, that's sort of for me, that's sort of his thing, and I can copy it, but on that particular thing that he does, I can copy it, but I can't do it as well. It's a very natural groove that he does.
So you used to jam with George Harrison, I read someplace.
I did jam with George. That was Henley. We went over to his house, and I don't know, because George has got a beautiful studio in the house there, and we ended up in the studio, and my younger brother went on bass guitar, and George went on lead guitar and vocal, and I went on drums, and we just did we just spent an hour or so doing rock and roll numbers, just playing round. And I didn't think any more of it until many years later, and I was in the States with Pete on tour, and it was George's 60th birthday party, and he'd hired Port Merion, which is it's a beautiful place. If you ever get over to the UK, Pat, I don't know if you've been, if you haven't been, or for the listeners, if you ever get over to the UK, apart from doing Beatle things, if you just want to do something that's a little bit out there, a little bit different, Port Merion is unbelievable. And that's where George's 60th birthday party was. And I got a phone call from my brother to say, hey, I'm at George's party. We'd finished our show. We were at the hotel having a few drinks. And I said, what's the party like? He said, oh, it's great. He said, he's got this huge screen up in the square. So I said, all right. So what's he got playing on the screen? He said, that's why I'm phoning you. He said, when we did that session with George, he said, I didn't know. He said, but George recorded the session and he filmed the session. He said, and the session's playing on the screens at the moment. So I said, we're up on the screens at George's 60th birthday bash. He said, yeah. I said, wow. I said, can you see George? So he said, yeah. He said, he's like 4 or 5 yards to my left, speaking to, I can't remember. And I said, well, the moment he stopped speaking to whoever it was, I said, grab George and ask him, can we have a copy of that video? So he said, okay, I will. I said, right. I said, I'm going to phone you back in 20 minutes. So I phoned him back 20 minutes later, got him, and said, well, I said, did you speak to George? He said, yeah, I did. I said, great. I said, are we getting a copy? He said, no, George says it's from his private collection. He doesn't give anyone copies. No. So, but hey, we had a lot of fun doing it. We didn't know it had been recorded. We didn't know it had been filmed, but it is there.
Well, Warren, you know Warren Brown. I mean, he's a mutual friend, and
Yeah.
he just wrote in and said that he loves the port that The Prisoner was filmed there.
That's correct. Yeah, The Prisoner was filmed there. He's the guy who put that together. I haven't got many heroes due to be really conceited. No, I haven't got many heroes. But the guy who did Port Merion, I love his story. It was at a time where if you wanted to be an architect, as long as you could draw and you were creative, you could be an architect. You didn't have to study. You didn't this, you didn't that. And basically, Port Merion just came out of this guy's head. It was his fantasy. It was his fantasy. And he built his fantasy village. And it really is. It's spectacular. It's spectacular. Yeah.
Personally, I've been watching a lot of ITV British series, and the most recent one is Broadchurch. I just think that's one of the best, mini series I've ever seen.
Yeah, the UK does some great dramas, but hey, come on, guys, the States does some great TV.
Yeah, we do too. We just got a message from Mexico. He doesn't have his name on here, but it says, "Do you and Pete ever play together?"
We played together all the time in the Pete Best Band, two drummers, and that came about because it was a little bit, hey, why is Pete doing it with two drummers? Why isn't he not standing alone? And it brings up all that bullshit of this crap that he wasn't a good enough player, which is just nonsense. And the reason that came about, it wasn't because Pete needed me there, because he doesn't need me there. He got persuaded after many, many years to do a one-off concert. And he said, eventually, and I mean, these guys were at him for years, and they couldn't get Pete to do it. And then they went through the back door and went to my mother and said to my mother, if you ask Pete to do it, he'll do it. And she liked them, you see. So she asked Pete to do it because it was Mo asking him. He agreed to do it. And he said, well, if I'm going to do it, he said, Roag may as well throw his drums up. He said, we'll do the drum thing together. One thing led to another. We came off stage that night. We're in the dressing room. There's a knock on the dressing room door. Guys talking to our roadie. And then roadie comes in and said, some guy wants to speak to you. He wants to offer you a tour. So I went out to speak to him and listened to him. We were all drinking. We were celebrating this show because it had been so much fun. So I arranged to meet him the next day, and he was serious. He was like, "No, I want to take you guys on tour." So I went and saw Pete and said he wants to take the band on tour, Canada for 4 weeks. What do you think? And Pete said, "Yeah, come on, why not?" Yeah, and that's how the whole thing of the two drummers came about, because the approach had been from that show where there was two of us drumming. So, and we've been drumming together in the Pete Best Band ever since. We don't do the same thing because there'd be absolutely no point to that, two guys just drumming the same pattern. So we always have one laying down the main pattern and then another one doing sort of a counter feed to it to make the sound bigger, but two guys doing the same thing, there'd be no point. There'd be no point. So we work hard at trying to get two different patterns together that fit together, that makes the sound bigger. And and we've been doing that since 1988, and we've got really, really good at it. It's become very natural now for both of us.
Well, on somebody sent a message, and I'm trying to figure out who it is. That the guy in Mexico was Michael Soloff, who does a show for us called Off the Beatles Track. So I want to apologize to Michael for that. And also, Warren, yes, we are getting these messages. And let's see, Facebook users said that Pete's last album was great. I think so too.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, Heyman's Green.
Yeah.
Heyman's Green. Yeah, we were nominated for 5 Grammys from that album. Nominated, we didn't win a Grammy, but it was nice to be nominated. We were nominated 5 times, so and that was it was a lot of fun putting the album together. And the label that was releasing the album for us, they kept giving us they kept giving us a date to deliver the album, and we never ever hit the delivery date. It was always like, we need more time. We need more time. And then the CEO of the company phoned me up and he said, listen, he said, the last time I had problems like this was with Bob Marley. He said, because Bob Marley had his own recording studio. He said, so money was never an issue. He said he was just playing round and playing round. He said, now, he said, this must be costing you guys a fortune. He said, because you haven't got your own recording studio, have you? And then he looked at me through this Skype thing and went, oh God, you've got your own recording studio, haven't you? And I said, yeah, we have.
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah. So, but we delivered it in the end. We delivered it in the end. We're very, very happy with that album. Very happy with it.
Yeah. And Michael Soloff also asked, when you were talking about that live show, did anybody record it?
Which live show in question, Pat?
The one I'm talking about with you and Pete.
Oh, sorry, the first one. Yeah. I had the foresight to have the show recorded and have it filmed as well. And that was the first album we ever released, was Live at the Adelphi, and that's that show, Live at the Adelphi.
Okay, because Michael is a collector of those sort of things. And
right, fantastic. Well, Michael, you've got to go and get Live at the Adelphi, otherwise your collection is not complete.
I got a Twitter. Pete tweeted out this morning. Work has begun on the Casbah apartments. What can you say about that?
Well, there's 4 things that I want to have done, and once we've got them in place, for me personally, it's like, right, that's enough. We'll just concentrate our efforts on them. We might do another album. I've got a couple of books that I want to write, but I want to get these 4 projects. 2 of them are already up and running. Obviously, the Casbah Coffee Club. I went to the time and trouble to get the Casbah opened again, which is hugely successful as a tourist attraction. Why wouldn't it be? It's where it all began. Then the next project was the Liverpool Beatles Museum, of course. That took 10 years to get off the ground. And then Heyman's Green, the Casbah, the house above it is a huge, big Victorian mansion. The boys used to crash out there after gigs. They crash out there after rehearsals. They'd come back from a cavern show or this show. They'd sit up drinking. Then it was like, find a room to sleep in. And then I thought, well, we've got, and I'm not going to start naming hotels because I'm not putting anybody down. Everyone does a great job and it keeps the whole thing alive, and we're all thankful for that. But different hotels and places where, like, hey, we're a Beatles hotel and we're this and we're that and we're that. And I was thinking, yeah, but they've never stayed there. A lot of those places, they've never even been there. With us, the whole thing of what we do, Pat, we keep saying, what we do is authentic, unique, and original. And the idea was born to convert the Casbah house into a hotel, Casbah Coffee Club holiday apartments. And the work only began on the holiday apartments yesterday. The work's all happening outside at the moment. But what we've got planned for the place, I swear, I mean, I sat down with a couple of guys literally a couple of days ago and was telling them how I saw the entranceway and the floors leading up to the landing of the house. And I turned around and one of them sitting there. Wow. Yeah, I said, you like that? And he went, that's going to blow people's minds. I said, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, Michael Soloff also has chimed in and said 2 things. He wants to know, where can he get a copy of the Adelphi? And also, he wanted to thank you for preserving all of this history.
Well, the second question with regards to preserving history, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm a huge historian. I'm very proud of our family's legacy and its connection to the Beatles, which of course is on three fronts. My mother Mona, my brother Pete, and my father Neil, of course. With regards to the first question, the live at the Adelphi, Michael, PM me. I don't know if you can get it anymore, but I know I've got like 3-4 copies of it lying around. PM me, man. I'll send you a copy. That doesn't mean everyone PM me, because I am actually talking about I've got 3-4 copies lying around. But if Michael's a huge collector, and as I did say, hey, if it's missing from your collection, I'll send you one. So PM me your address or something.
There you go. So let me ask you this. You were born in 1962, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 62 just happened to be the year that Pete left the group, right?
Yeah, well, he was dismissed, but yeah, that 62 was the final year for Pete.
Yeah, right. And but you grew up around that whole scene. I mean, you're pre-teen years, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, Pete's time had ended, but you couldn't escape from the fact that Pete's a Beatle, especially not in our hometown,
Right.
and of course, even though maybe the journey had stopped for Pete, but the journey hadn't stopped for the family, because my father Neil, of course, was still there, right in the heart of it. So even though the family wasn't on that road anymore, we were still getting to hear things first. What was happening? What was this? We were getting to hear tracks first. I know growing up as a kid and getting interested in music, and then I'm starting to go through the albums. I'm starting to go through the singles, and I kept finding these singles with this like the labels just white with Beatles and a song just handwritten on, and I'd play it, and it'd be slightly different to the track that I knew, which had been released, but didn't make the connection. And it wasn't until years later, my dad said to me, he said, "Hey," he said, "if you ever come across," he said, "a whole stack of acetates." So I said, "Acetates?" He said, "Yeah, it's like a white label and it's like handwritten on."
Oh,
I said,
wow.
yeah. So I said, "We've got a load of them in the singles." And he went, No. He said, they shouldn't be in the singles. They shouldn't be getting played. you know. So he said, I don't want them back. He said, but take them out the singles and put them somewhere safe. So I did. So I have all those acetates, I'm very glad to say.
Well, Leanne, your daughter, is an accomplished actress. Proudly hails from Liverpool as well. And
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you, man, ever since I started following the Beatles, really getting into it since like 1964, I have all the stuff with Pete, the stuff after Pete. I wanted to tell you that your mother has such movie star looks. It's incredible.
Oh, she was a beautiful, beautiful woman, and she was a real showstopper. Not just because of her looks, but because of her because of her personality. I've described Mo to people before, people who haven't met Mo, didn't have the pleasure of meeting Mo, that she was like a real firecracker. And by that, I mean, when you look at a firecracker going off, you're seeing all these beautiful lights, and it's beautiful, and wow, and this, that, and the other. But the other side of the firecracker, to make those beautiful lights and things that were all, oh, isn't it wonderful, is that explosion. And she did have that explosive temper as well. So if you were on side with Mo, you had a lovely time. But if she disliked you, oh, yeah. I used to see her she had a way of just staring at people. And it was like, she had a stink eye that used to just stink eye, we call it in the UK. I don't know what you call it.
Oh no, I say that all the time to people. I said, "Don't give me the stink eye."
Yeah, she had a stink eye, man, that used to just stop people in their tracks. yeah. So, she was a very beautiful woman. Yeah.
Well, I got another question for you. Let me see. I gotta find it. Oh, I'm gonna ask you about the Elvis stuff that you have in the Beatles Museum, which has now been rebranded. Let me put that on the screen so people can see it. It's now called the Liverpool Beatles Museum, right?
Yeah, during the lockdown, we started off as the Magical History Museum, and then we all sort of sat back and it just doesn't have that punch. And then we went to Magical Beatles Museum, and then one of the guys just said, "Listen, why don't we just call it what it is? It's in Liverpool and it's a Beatles museum. It's the Liverpool Beatles Museum." And of course, sometimes the obvious one is sitting there right in front of you and you don't see it. Well, that was with that. So
that pretty much says it all, right?
Yeah. It's what's on the tin. So while we did the whole lockdown, we thought, hey, let's take the time to rebrand. So we did, and changed the signs and added to it and put another 100 exhibition items in there. And we've still got a lot more to come. Liverpool Beatles Museum.
So what kind of Elvis collection you have there?
Well, going back to the Elvis collection, that stems to when the Beatles actually met Elvis, and it wasn't chronicled. So, hey, I'm not aware of it's being chronicled. I've said this before, where hey, it's never been chronicled. Next to it, 20 people jump up and go, yes, it has in so and so's book of blah blah blah. It's like, hey, I haven't read every Beatles book under the sun, I know our story very well. I know a lot of the rest of it really, really well, but I don't know all of it. I don't know all of it. But when they met Elvis, at the end of that meeting, Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker gave them gifts. There was gifts that were given to the Beatles, and one was a wagon lamp, like a Wild West wagon lamp. Looks like a Wild West wagon, but it's got a light inside. You can switch it on. And it was only when we were putting the museum together that we realized what the whole thing with the wagon was. And it turned out that it's Colonel Tom Parker's logo, the Wild West wagon. It's actually his logo. So that's why the wagon was given. And there was also, because Elvis had a thing for Palomino horses, so they were all given these little brass Palomino horses. So we've got one of them. And then there was, and I saw this while we were at Graceland, and went, oh, now I get what that is. And it was like in Elvis's trophy room, should we call it, or awards room. And there was one wall there where it's like these little cowboy boots awards. I apologize to whoever gives those awards. Hey, I can't remember what the award was, but there was a lot of them. But the cowboy, I looked at it and thought, that's the cowboy boot, except Elvis has had an ashtray put onto the side of it. So whatever these awards were, he'd had them changed into ashtrays. So they were all given that. And then there was also a holster, like a Wild West holster, all leather embroidered. And on the inside of that, it's to the Beatles from Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker. So they were the gifts. And I've seen photographs where in the States, Mal Evans is wearing the holster that they were given and mucking around with the, it's not a real gun, thank God, but mucking around with the gun by a swimming pool. But that holster that Mal's wearing, he's got his swimming trunks on, and he's got the holster on. He's just messing about. But that holster was one of the gifts that Elvis gave them as well. So it's the gifts that they were given when they met Elvis. That's what we have on display at the museum.
Oh, that's right. So I got, if this question is too personal, let me know. But it always intrigued me that Neil Aspinall being your dad and all of his connections with the Beatles while you were growing up, and all of the drama that happened when Pete was let go. Was that awkward for you?
No, it wasn't awkward at all, because one of the things, and not many things grate me. I'm very happy, and the people who know me, I'm sure they'd agree. No, you're not like that. So I consider myself to be really laid back, and it takes a lot to get under my skin, because if I find something annoying or someone's not pleasant, rather than get into a thing with them, I just walk away. Just walk away from it. Who needs the hassle? You don't need to it takes two people to argue. If you don't argue, it's just one person talking to themselves, which makes them look really foolish. So the only thing that I'd have people walking up to me, and they sidle next to me and go, "Hey, I know who your dad is." I go, "Yeah, so do I." And then people, it's like people they're not close enough to get it right, and then they write the book, and then you have other people who write their books who plagiarize their book, and then something starts taking this solid form, and people think, well, hey, that's the way it must have been. And one of the things that sort of took that solid form was that Neil and Mo basically had an affair. It was a brief thing, and it was all over, and then I was the result of that, and that's all. I'll just say it's bollocks. They were actually together from 1960 to 1968. They were together for 8 years. So it was a very, very strong relationship, and even when they split up, they remained friends. So that used to annoy me, and now I just think, oh, well, if you don't get it, you don't get it.
All right. I wanted to tell you that Paul Majorana, I don't think you know Paul, but you could be a friend of his on Facebook. He actually owns a T-shirt shop in Staten Island, New York, and his theory is that the Beatles booted out Pete because they wanted to get rid of your mom because she had too much control over them. Does that make any sense?
Well, that sort of came about. There was a guy who wrote a book, and he put that down as a theory in his book, and I don't sit there and analyze this stuff, but I think there were I suppose there's politics within everything. There's jealousies that can come from different things. And there came a point, a very good friend of mine whose name I won't mention because he is known. And I was with him in London having a drink at one of the hotels. And I don't even know how we got on the subject. And I said to him, here you go. I said, what's your thoughts? I said, what's your thoughts? I said, you were there. And I'm not talking about my dad. I said, you were there. And he said, okay. He said, you've got a guy. He said, drummers don't normally become the most popular guy in the group. He said, you've got a guy who's now the drummer in the band, and he's now the most popular member in the band. He said, so he's holding more sway than the guys that do the singing and write the songs. He said, that's not normal. He said, then you've got his mother, who's looking after the business affairs. He said, so the family's got an even tighter grip on what's going on. He said, then their transport is also being supplied from the same family. He said, my feeling was there came a point within the camp where it's like, we need to break that hold. He said, and to break that hold was bang. You get Pete out, that's Pete gone, that's Pete's mum gone. It's, we've broken that hold, and I listened and thought, yeah, you could be right. You could be right. So as the gentleman just came on, hey, to get rid of Mo, no, I don't think it was just to get rid of Mo. I think it was to stop a situation that was there becoming any stronger. I think it was very much, if we don't do it now, we could have problems further on down the road, as in, hey, he could be having all the say. We don't want that, But again, I could be totally wrong. I'm not saying that's the way it is. I'm just saying that was a theory that I heard and thought, yeah, maybe, but who knows?
Well, Warren has chimed in with asking about what actually. He hasn't read up on this, okay, like we have, but or you experienced it firsthand. But what exactly did Mona do for the Beatles? And more important, was she ever Brian Epstein's go-to girl?
Oh, Brian, when Brian first came on the scene, Brian didn't know anything about managing groups. He didn't know about promotion. He didn't know about the right time to ask for more money. He just didn't know how it worked. you know. So Brian would constantly be on the phone to Mo. He'd be phoning Mo up, getting her advice. What do you think we should do with this? What you think we should do with that? So he was constantly asking her, phoning her, what's your thoughts on this? And then, of course, his own experience grew. And the phone calls became less and less and less and less because Brian was very much, oh, I've got this now. I know how this works now. But originally, when he first came on the scene, he was on the phone to Mo all the time, asking her, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? You know, do you think we should ask this venue for more money now? You know, so yeah, she was basically his go-to.
Mm-hmm. So listen, before we go, this has been great, Roag, and I really appreciate you coming on. This is the premiere of Beatles-A-Rama TV, so you're the very first guest.
I'm very proud to be the very first guest.
Thank you.
Very proud. Thank you, Pat.
I'd like you to, tell everybody about the Liverpool Beatles Museum, and just like a little commercial for it.
Okay, the Liverpool Beatles Museum is the most authentic, unique, and original Beatles museum in the world. We have one-off, rare items that you cannot see anywhere else. We're right in the heart of Beatledom, right in the middle of Matthew Street, and it's getting, hey, I'm going to do it. I've got to do it. And it's getting better and better all the time.
I read the background story about how you held out for that building on Matthew Street and how it just kind of fell into your lap after all. Yeah. And I mean, that's an incredible story. So, it was meant to be.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, listen, thank you so much. And this is going to be archived on the Beatles-A-Rama Facebook fan club page. And if you ever get a chance to listen, I mean, I know I sent you a PM one time and said, hey, could you play Beatles-A-Rama in the museum? And you said, I don't know. You said something about it was already locked up or whatever, but give it a listen and see what you think. If you get a chance, Beatles-A-Rama.com. And you have a great night.
Pat, thank you so much for the interview. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope it's been entertaining. I hope you got something out of it. And God bless you all. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right, everybody. There you have it. The very first edition of Beatles-A-Rama TV. I hope you liked it. Stay tuned to the Beatles-A-Rama fan club page and also my own personal page, and you'll be able to see who we have coming up in the weeks to come. I got Tom Murphy. He's for the photographer for the Beatles Day Out, a Mad Day Out, I should say. And we're going to have him as a guest next week, actually. So he's our next guest on Beatles-A-Rama TV. So for everybody here at Beatles-A-Rama.com, you have a great day. Bye-bye.